Today we're turning trash into treasure. Let's go make something awesome. I have this piece of cloth that basically, like, if I'm working with alcohol ink and there's some on a paintbrush or something like that, or I just need to wipe something up, I use this piece of cotton fabric to do that. But I also love the colors, so I wanted to try to do something with it. So I cut off a little bit of this. I've been playing around with some different ideas over the last couple of days, and I want to turn these into paper, or I guess in this case, fabric beads. So it's been a really long time since I've done this, but I used to do this all the time when I was a kid, and it was one of my favorite activities, only I was doing it with paper. So the first thing I'm gonna do is take off this bracelet because it's dangling so much and it's driving me crazy. But how cute is it? It's a little charm bracelet. I love it. First things first, I have to cut this down to size. I'm gonna remove these fringes over here on the side just to keep a clean edge. It doesn't have to be perfectly clean, and I kind of love the frayed look. It's fun and it adds visual interest to the finished product. But these tiny pieces are just gonna kind of make a mess because they're so fuzzy. So I'm taking those off. There we go. And I'll just throw that somewhere. And then now I'm going to trim these down into basically long triangles. So I'm gonna start with kind of the middle here. And I'm just gonna cut down to the bottom. These scissors aren't very sharp. And here, like that. And then these, they have a bit of a more blunt edge. That's okay, like you could do that and that would be fine. But I want to keep all the beads sort of a consistent shape. They don't have to be exactly the same. And keep in mind, the pattern that's on here is literally just me wiping off the ink from my brushes when I'm using them. To add color to something. So just if you're gonna make cloth specifically for this purpose, just take some alcohol inks and just drop it. And then this gold was for me putting my paintbrush in there and just like cleaning it off. And that's where that gold came from. But I think it'll be a cool little addition. It's gonna add some visual interest, and that's what I'm all about. So I'm gonna do the same thing over here. And they don't need to be perfect, they just need to be done, which is my current life philosophy. Not perfect, just done. Okay, and then back over to this side. Now, when you're doing this, you want to think about, like, what do I want the main color of the bead to be? Because whatever you have down here at the bottom is what's going to be the most visible. So in this one, I really love this green area, so that's why I'm putting the point down here. So I'm just gonna go like this. And then like this. Now, the more broad the bead at the top, or the more broad your triangle is at the top here, that's how long your bead is going to be, basically. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. I think that one's okay. Could be a little straighter, but that's fine. And then finally, this one, and it naturally is wanting to kind of curve down that way. There we go. And then I have a couple of scraps here that I may turn into beads later, but for now, I'm just setting them aside. Okay, so I have a handful of these little cloths, and I cut a few more earlier. So I've got a good place to start. I'm going to now start shaping them.
Okay, so I have my patches. I have this little piece of plastic that was part of like a mold, I think. Like it was part of the packaging. And then I also have this Mod Podge glossy luster finish kind. I don't know how old this is. It still works. I've been using it recently, but this one's specifically glossy, so I'm hoping that it's going to give like a nice shiny effect. Okay, so this is how it's going to work. I have my little tool, and this is literally just a piece of wire that I folded in half and like just really squeezed very closely together. And so it's like a little tong, a little, yeah, like little chopsticks. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is take this. I'm going to take one of the little pieces of cloth, and I want to decide which side I want to be the front, which side I want to be the back. I think this side has the more vibrant teal. This side has the more vibrant lime color. So I think I'm going to do it with this side facing outward. So I'm going to slide this. I'm going to slide the fabric between the two pieces of the wire. And then I'm going to slowly start to fold it backward. And I'm going to do 2 rotations until the wire is completely covered with the fabric. Okay. And then once I have that and it's secure, I'm going to take my little sponge brush, dip it in some Mod Podge, just a little bit, not a crazy amount. And then I'm going to coat the inside of this just enough to get it to stick. Okay. So now I'm going to keep wrapping it as tightly as I can. And then I want to make sure I give the end of it a little extra attention. I don't want that unwrapping. Okay. Now, at this point, if you wanted to, you could coat the outside with a bit more Mod Podge, which is what I'm going to do. But you don't necessarily have to. But because I used just regular alcohol ink and paint and stuff like that, and not something that's, you know, water resistant or UV resistant, fade resistant, I am going to go ahead and coat with a little bit of this on the outside. Okay. I don't want it to be really goopy. I just want it to have enough to kind of seal the colors in. Okay. And then I'm going to give that a chance to dry just a bit. I just need it to hold its shape. Now, once you're confident that it's, you know, it's not going to be dry, but once you think that it's enough to like hold its shape together, I'm going to go ahead and slide it off of the little wire. And I'm going to set it aside to let it finish. Okay. And the reason why we did the 2 rotations around, and I'll demonstrate again. Okay, the reason I'm doing these 2 folds up here at the top without any of the Mod Podge is because I don't want it to stick to my metal piece here. I just want to kind of get things started. Oh my gosh, why am I having such a hard time with this? Okay, and then fold, and then fold, and then fold until I have 2 full rotations. Now, another coat on the inside. You want to make sure that your tip, the very end of, you know, the fabric, you want to make sure that that has a good amount so that it will stay put. Because if it starts to unravel, you're going to be in for a bad time. Okay, so I'm giving this just enough to be shiny, but not enough to be like wet. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why using a brush like this is helpful, because it's going to absorb a little bit of that for you. Okay, so I'll give this a chance to dry, and then I'm going to slide this off, and then I'm going to set that aside to fully dry. Okay, let's make another one. Ooh, I love the colors on this. So I've got some bold purple, a gorgeous like teal color, gold, lime green. I mean, literally this is the bracelet I made the other day. It's so funny how like I'm literally just so predictable when it comes to like my color schemes and things like that. Okay. So once again, wrapping or putting this in here. Okay. And then I'm going to go 1, 2, and let me put my Podge over here so that I can actually see it. Okay. Let's paint that. This is definitely a messy project, but it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be too bad. Like, you could definitely do this with kids. I would maybe, instead of using like a luster gloss Mod Podge, I would maybe do like Elmer's glue, like just regular old school glue. I think that would work just as well. Okay, and I kind of love that there's a little fluffy right there. And I'm gonna put a little on the outside. And like I said, you could definitely do this with paper too. Like if you had a washi tape you really liked, you could definitely do this same thing. I know it kind of looks like a hot mess right now, but I promise it's gonna look really cool once we put it all together.
Okay, so this is where we're at now. I have a handful of beads to work with. I created a little tool, which is just a piece of that same wire. Okay, I let them fully dry, and now this is not required at all. You don't have to do this, but what I'm going to do is give each one a coat of resin, so that way they don't come apart. They'll be nice and shiny, and they'll also be, you know, stiff, and they're not going to just be kind of like twisted up fabric, so to speak, which is exactly what it is right now. So I'm gonna glove up. I'm gonna pour out some resin, and then we're going to decorate these, or we're gonna make these beautiful. Okay, let me get some gloves on. Okay, now I get asked a lot what kind of resin I like best, and I like the resins that everyone else uses, the Let's resin, the Jadictions, things like that. But I've also started recently, I've been buying this. I actually bought it a long time ago, and I think I had 2 bottles. One of the bottles I ended up like stashing in my desk and forgetting about. And then I found it a few months ago, which was really interesting. But I really love this UV resin, and it's also really inexpensive. So if you're looking for a good resin to start out with, or you wanna get a bit more so that you can do a bigger project, you can get 4 bottles of this, and they're each 250 grams. For if you're in the US, for under 30 bucks. So that's a really, really good value. Just a little PSA, they don't sponsor me or anything, but I don't like to gatekeep my materials. And if I find a good deal, I love passing it along. Okay, so I'm taking the resin and I'm just brushing it all over. As of right now, I'm not super worried about keeping them separated, but once I start curing, I'm gonna make sure that they're not touching, because if they do touch, then we're gonna have an issue with, where they all fuse together, which I don't want to happen. Okay, so I'm just gonna do 1 coat to try to like saturate, and then I'll do a second coat Once this one's cured, I'll do a second coat to bulk it up and give it a bit more of a finish. Because this first coat, you'll definitely be able to feel the textures, which isn't a bad thing if that's what you want. I actually love the way the texture feels, and it looks really cool, but I do want this to last a bit longer, and I do, want it to be watertight so that it doesn't bleed the colors out. Okay. Again, I'm basically just trying to saturate the fabric. Okay, so I have my beads here. What I'm gonna do now is just trim these edges so that these little frayed bits go away. Now, you don't necessarily have to do that. If I had left these just with the Mod Podge and not coated them in resin, I probably would have left them here, but I have an idea of what I want to do to them once this is trimmed away. So I'm going to do that really fast. So I'm just going to take my scissors, and the resin is fairly thin, so it won't take a whole lot of pressure, but I'm just going to trim that away. And then I'm just going to kind of cut away at any buildup or excess, from around it. So just going through and delicately, very easily trimming away. Like, these scissors are way too big for this task, but they're working. Okay. If you have a pair of flush cutters, those might even work on the actual resined parts. Okay. But I'm just trying to clear away a little bit of it. So again, I'm going to do this with each one. This would be an opportunity to, like, if some of them were way bigger than the others, you could kind of trim them down to size. This one's a lot longer because the flat part of the triangle was really wide. I am okay with that, though. I like the fact that it's a little longer. There's some variety in the sizes, so I'm good with leaving it like that. Okay, there we go. That one's good. Do this one. And here. And then here. Like that. Oh, almost cut my finger off. Don't do that. That would be a bad idea. That would not be rad. There we go. Okay. Now, I pre-did some of these, so some of these are already done. But yeah, so now what I'm gonna do is bring back my gold paint. This is Folk Art Treasure Gold. This is like the closest thing to like gold rub and buff that I could find in paint form. I really love this stuff, and it's fairly cheap too. Like, I think this bottle was like $6 or something on Amazon. But I'm just gonna take a little bit and kind of smear it here. And I'll set that aside. And then now I'm gonna take each bead and I'm gonna dip the edge in the gold on both sides. And then I'll just kind of tap it to kind of like press it into the fabric. Now, this is just simple acrylic paint, so it's not really gonna cause any issues skin-wise, unless you're like highly allergic to, anything, but acrylic paint's pretty benign. I've spent a lot of time finger painting with acrylic paint. Anything can be a paintbrush if you have a big enough imagination. Now, a couple things, or a couple reasons why I wanted to do this. So a few reasons why I wanted to do this gold portion is because having something like this on all your beads ties them together and makes them cohesive. So even though each one might be a slightly different size, or it might be the pattern is different because of how the cloth was, it doesn't really matter, because these gold tips create this indication of all of this goes together. So from a design perspective, it's a smart move to just have that like little thing that brings everything together. This will also keep those, once the acrylic dries, because it's sort of like plasticky in nature, it will actually kind of seal these edges and keep them from fraying again. I'm going to start assembly of the bracelet now. I have some colorful, like shattered glass looking beads, as well as these two-tone green and blue beads. I think that these will nicely complement the different colors that are on the beads that I made. And so I'm going to start putting it together now. I'm going to keep things simple, and I'm going to use some memory wire. For me, this is like the fastest, easiest way to make a bracelet. But you could, of course, string it on elastic or whatever else that you might like. But I'm going to go ahead and just cut off some of this. Now, depending on the kind of memory wire you have, chances are you're going to need a really good pair of cutters. They make some specifically for these. I don't have any of those, but I do have a pair of flush cutters that I use for like non-precision. So I'm just gonna use those, but I'm gonna find the end of it. Okay, there we go. All right, it's like a slinky. So I'm gonna make sure that it has 2 full rotations, and then I'm going to give it like a little bit of room on each side of this gap. So I'm going to cut to about right here, because eventually I'm going to have to curl these back on itself. There we go. Let's see. I do want to add some spacer beads as well. I don't know how big this is going to be, but I do have some little spacers right there. Actually, it's gold, so I want to keep things consistent and do gold spacers. So let me go find some gold spacers. Okay, so I have this box of spacer beads. So I'll go ahead and pick a couple of these out. Okay, so I'm going to use my needle nose pliers here to twist this backward and create a little loop at the end here. Okay, so that will be my stopper for when I start adding beads. And I want to try to get that as flush as I can. I'm gonna start by adding my first spacer. So I'm gonna do 1 gold spacer. And then a colored bead. Another spacer. Then I'm going to do one of these guys. Slide that right on. And then I'm going to just repeat that pattern. This next go around, I'm going to do a blue bead. All right, you can see the pattern starting to emerge here. I think it's looking so cool. Okay, let's keep going. All right, and here we have our finished product. So I just closed it off with another loop at the end. And here we go. And it's so cute. So like if you look really closely at it, you can kind of tell that it's fabric, which has like a really cool textile effect. But if you're just looking at it at a glance, you would never think that this was made out of fabric beads. I think it turned out really cute, and I love the fact that it came mostly from like recycled materials. As someone who grew up without a ton of craft supplies and things like that, because our family wasn't the wealthiest, being able to repurpose things and turn them into something fun has always just been the way I operated. So I really loved this project. I love the spirit behind it of reusing, items that you may already have. You could even make something like this out of like ribbon, like cloth ribbon, or you could also, like, if you really wanted to, if you just had like a scrap of a t-shirt or something like that, you could make something like this as a keepsake as well. I think that would be really fun. So I hope you had a really good time with this project today. And if you did, I hope you try it out yourself. So why don't you go make something awesome this weekend? And as always, stay rad. If you want to see even more upcycled projects, I have just the video for you. Click here right now.